Donald Stecky. We're back again, and today is our first cosplay photography lesson. I want to thank you for joining me. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram, Stucky Media, Facebook on Stucky Media. You can also go to my website at www.stuckymedia.com. I appreciate you joining me today, and today we're going to talk about one of the most basic things in cosplay photography, and that is lighting. And obviously, I don't have a big production here, but I do want to take you through some photos that I've taken over the last several years that I think will help to show you some very good lighting options for your cosplay portraiture or cosplay photography. So I'm going to go ahead and take these images full screen, and so that we can have a good look at what's going on. So the first image, I went to the wrong one here. Here we go. The first image here is a friend of mine. Well, see, we can't go full screen, so because it's just going to automatically play them. So the first image that we have is a excellent Supergirl, the comic book version, and you can see that this was a really good image. This is a really fun shoot. There was a small Michigan con here a couple of years ago called Daigoko Con or something like that, and this is where I took this image. So the first thing that really stands out about this is the dappled light that you see in the cape, and the excellent rim light that you see on in the hair. And so the way that we created this image was that we had a single speed light, and we also just allowed the light that was naturally coming through the trees. Oftentimes with any type of photography, with a lot of portrait work, you're going to find a lot of interesting light that is going to come through the trees. I want to take you into her face. And the speed light is kind of creating the rim lights in her eyes. I like that look just because of the fact that it brings the person to life. It puts a little sparkle in her eye, if you will. We have this nice, really broad type of lighting on her, and in post, what I like to do is to try and make that light to be a little heavier contrast, that light to be more contrasty, and this is the final result that I usually get out. But this is just one way in which you can create a very pleasing and interesting light pattern on the face of your subject. Moving on, again we have a different cosplayer here. This is Shukamu's cosplay. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I forgot the cosplay that she was wearing. All I know is that it is bad. It is a very is a badass cosplayer. Let's just put it that way. And but this cosplayer is known for really taking these risky cosplays where they just go all out with it. And with this cosplay, my personal opinion, I think she pulled it off very well. So one of the main points here is that this was a night photo, and we had a single speed light um, in reflector, and we had a one about a one stop diffuser on it, white diffuser, and one of the things that you really have to come to find out with any type of diffuser that you're using, or any type of speed light that you're using rather, is that if you don't have it pointed the right way, the light is not going to go and travel in the direction that you want it to. Um, and so that was the mistake here, and that's why the heels of the cosplay are more are a little blown out, and not as much light got on the face, but sometimes that happens. But the thing here is you can see what kind of thing that you can do when you experiment. You can really get that light just to be focused in one area. You also have to watch out for shadows when you're shooting like this. This is one of the things that you have to deal with when you have a speed light, is that you'll get those shadows cast against the wall. In this case, I think it works. So you have to really experiment with it to try and get it to work. Sometimes it's just a issue of making sure that your light is in the proper direction, so that the shadow that's being cast either can't be seen by other people, or it can't be it can be it can is easily uh, becomes part of the image. It becomes a really good element in the image instead of a distracting one. So moving on, uh, this one we did not use a speed light at all. This image um, is straight outside, and all we did was just make sure that the lighting was clean in when we took it into Lightroom. So to explain this one a little bit is that it was a very, very cloudy day. It was extremely cold outside. This is November in Detroit at Yumicon, and so it was very cold outside. And so when I shot this image, you can imagine that the cosplayer was extremely cold. But as I said, it was very cloudy outside, and it was the clouds were a little gray. There was hardly any sun. So that's one thing, is I had to open up the camera a little bit more and give it a little more ISO. And obviously I had to clean up. I had to do some more cleanup in Photoshop. But this is again an example of what you can do even when the conditions aren't as well. Now, gray clouds are not a bad thing, as you can see here. You can, if you pull back, you open up in your camera and you play with the lighting in Lightroom, you can get an image that is very well done. And by simply having your cosplayer, having the cosplayer turn their head in different directions, you can get the light either out of their face or put a little bit more light in their face. And so this is why her head is more towards me, and you can actually see a little bit of shadow under her chin. This is one of my favorite images. It is actually on my wall. I shot this image several years ago. We used a 2 light setup. One of the lights were in a modifier, in an octabank with one level of diffusion on it. The other one was a bare speed light that I had a friend of mine hold up, and that's why we have that little bit of rim light here on the top of the mask in the back of the cosplayer's head. And so that's one thing I really like about this kind of setup, is the light is coming. The light from the main light is coming from the bottom, so you get a little bit of horror lighting. And we had the model had the cosplayer move her head a few times, few different places to really catch that light and to really get her face and everything lit up. And we finished the rest in Lightroom by darkening um, in a number of places and putting in some heavy contrast to really give it that um, contrasty look and bumping up the colors in Lightroom. And this is one of the things that you want to work with when you're doing this kind of more dramatic lighting and you have a colorful cosplay. You want to make sure that you're bumping those colors up so that they stand out in the image. And again, this is two flashes, two speed lights. One is in a octabank. You can use whatever kind of modifier that you want. Maybe you have a light box. Maybe you have a an umbrella. You can still achieve this similar kind of effect. The whole point is that you want to direct it where it's lighting up the face, and you're getting light on the proper parts of the face. And we used it again. We used the second speed light to help carve out and give some rim light on the back of the head, which is a nice effect that you want to try. This image was shot in the studio. This is my friend who I've shot with for several years. This image was actually published in Heroes and Villains of Cosplay magazine. One of my favorite shots from that year. And the thing about the lighting here is that this is just basic studio lighting. A 3-light setup. We had a hair light, we had a key light, and we had a background light, which we shot against the wall. In studio, this is the kind of basic lighting that you're gonna get. So this is the kind of thing that you want. The whole idea is that you want to make the entire image stand out. And since we had no real other elements here, the lighting just becomes really important, because if that basic lighting concepts aren't there, then you aren't going to be able to create a very good image. Obviously, we shot this against a white background. There's different things you can do when you shoot against a white background versus a black background. I like black backgrounds better, or gray backgrounds. You can do a lot more with the lighting, but a basic white background, if you do it right, then you can create some really interesting shots. So, moving on. This is Harley Quinn. This is the DC, I believe it's the new 32 version Harley Quinn. Yeah, this is the new 32 version Harley Quinn. This was also published in a magazine. This is a very simple shot. One light, shot on the side. We get a nice Rembrandt type lighting. You can tell from the nose where part of the face is in light, the other part is in shadow. We had the light, we feathered the light where we were able to get enough to give us that nice reflection in the eye. We probably went a little too bright on it, but I think it helped to carve out her face and to help highlight the colors in the cosplay and in her hair, in the wig of the cosplay. And so this is again another one of those techniques that you can do by simply just positioning the light in the right places. You can achieve an interesting look. And again, these are shots that you don't have to have $1,000 lights to do. All of these, most of these shots were achieved with a single speed light that cost about $50, and a light stand that was about $10, and a shoot through umbrella or a Octabank, which you can also get for 10 or $15 off Amazon. So very low cost, low bar to get started with doing this kind of lighting. This is another example of understanding um, use um, how to balance outside light, artificial and natural light. The majority of this image is natural light. We shot this at golden hour. This was shot in November. You can see in the background that there were a lot of trees that were getting ready to, where the leaves were getting ready to fall off, and just so happens enough of them had yellow and light green type leaves on them, and the light hit the sunlight hit those trees just at the right time, and we used a speed light just to help give a little bit more light onto the cosplayer. And that's why this image works really well, is knowing how to balance the natural light and the artificial light. Way less artificial light. This is mostly natural light, but that again, that speed light helps to give you a little bit extra in there. And again, the location of where you shoot is also really important. And this is again an example of that. This is a brick road that a brick walkway that is pretty close to a that's pretty close that's around an area where there's a fair amount of trees and things like that. And so those trees with the leaves on it, they not only give you a really nice background, but they also diffuse the sunlight that's out there, giving you the chance to create a very good image that's not blown out. This is one of my absolute favorite images from 2018. Now, you would think from looking at it that you would see that we use two lights. In fact, I only use one light. So this is the one of the main characters from the anime Triple X Holic. I forgot the actual character's name, but I'm sure if you've seen that show, you probably know who it is. So very simply, we had a single light that we had on a light stand. We had everything I've been saying since I got started with this stream, and that is that we had a light octabank, one level of diffusion, and we put it close enough. And when I took the first shot, I saw that I was getting this great looking halo on the wall behind her. And this is again where this gets really interesting. And so we just kept shooting, and I just moved the light ever so slightly, and we did a couple of different poses, and we had her move a couple of times, and we got to this shot where we were able to get enough light on her face and still maintain that really nice looking halo on the background. So just with one light and positioning it in the right place, we made it appear as though we had two lights that we used on this shot. And so again, knowing how to do that, you can make your you can make a shot look like you're using more than one light. So this is a shot where I had my friend allowed me to use his big monolight. This was a Godox AD600, and he had a huge umbrella, um, a huge reflector umbrella that he allowed me to use. It kind of looked like a wind sail, but you know, I took a couple of shots, and you can just see the kind of light that you can output with with that kind of light, and you can make it to where you know, when you position it high enough, you can create great looking shadows under every single subject that you have in your every subject that you have that you're shooting. And so this is how this image came to be. Why I like this one so much. One of the things that and again, you can do this. We shot this one against a plain wall, and you know, by simply moving it, you can eliminate the harshness on one side, because that was one of the mistakes with this image, is that we just had it for on one side, but I only had a few minutes to shoot with these cosplayers. So this is a shoot that I did a few months ago, earlier this year, and the interesting thing about this character, well, about this cosplay, and about the lighting that we're using, is that the material is very reflective, and that's one thing that you're going to see a lot in cosplay, is that a lot of cosplayers are moving to um, material that is more reflective. Um, um, Different leathers or types of plaid that are sewn in, or some cosplays that are full leather or full latex. You're seeing a lot more of those reflective type cosplays that are being used, and some I've seen over the last couple of years. And so you're going to see a lot of times where when you use a light, that you're going to get that light is going to reflect off of that cosplay. That's why it's important to make sure that you're making the light source as big as possible, so you're not getting just big balls of light in certain areas of the cosplay, which can make the image look less, which makes the image look less, you know, less good, and so that's something that you want to be careful of. So with this shot, one of the things that we did was we took a look at is that we obviously got the light down to her level. We got on one knee, and we took the shots, and we just moved it back and forth to adjust how harsh the light appeared on the cosplayer. And obviously, we created some good shadows on her face, and was able to get a good amount of interesting light on this cosplay. One thing that you have to be careful of when you're shooting anybody in white, um, when you have when you're shooting a flash against white, you tend to have a situation where you blow out the white. And so the good thing with this cosplay is that if you look closely, there is some gray patterns, and then obviously you have the other parts of the cosplay that are black, so it has some contrast there. But you have to be really careful when you're shooting this type of when you're shooting cosplay that has white. Because I remember a few years ago I shot a cosplayer had on a wedding dress, and I shot it, and I got home, and I started looking at the shots, and I said, well, these images are just blown out, and it's very difficult um, to recover those kind of issues. So you have to be very careful, and so that's why moving that flash back and adjusting the intensity of the light as it comes out is key when you're shooting against white. But the interesting thing here is with this shot and with many other shots is that creating those shadows is something that you want to do. Shadows that make the cosplay looks interesting, makes the appearance on the face look good, helps to carve out certain parts of the face and the body. Those are the kind of things that you're looking for when you're trying to light. And again, that's why, and I'll keep saying it again, is that you have to move that light around, move it back and forth, and continue to take shots until you see how that light is working and how the shadows are falling. And that's why it's important to review your images um, when you're trying to light your subjects. So obviously, this is an image that I've recently taken, and this one is really simple. We took a speed light, shot it against the background, and used natural light just to take care of the rest of the lighting on the rest of the image. Real simple, and we just finished it in Lightroom. And so this is again what you can do. This is again just being creative, using the most, um, using the least amount of um, of equipment possible, but you're still able to create a excellent looking image by understanding how to utilize natural light and utilize artificial light. And this image speaks well, I think, to that ability to do that. And I've seen many photographers over the years who've been able to do this with cosplay photography, is to be able to create great images um, while using very little equipment. This is another image where we use one light. The thing I think this one demonstrates well is how shadows, what I talked about a few minutes ago, was the ability to utilize shadows to create dynamic images. And you've seen a few examples of this, but I think this is probably one of the best examples that I have. Um, looking at the face of the cosplayer, you can see how we have some really good deep shadows um, that help to carve out the face. And even as you go up and down the full body of the cosplayer, is you can see how those shadows, and then a lot of times you can create a great reflection off the wall. Again, depending on where you're at. We created a great looking. We created an interesting reflection. Um, if we had moved her, if we had moved the cosplayer probably a little bit, or we changed our angle, we probably could have gotten a cleaner one. But it still works out, I think, very well. And so again, this is just really understanding how to use light to create shadows and to create shadows that help the image look really interesting and dynamic. So that's all I have for you. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this stream. Um, I hope that you found that this content was interesting and that it was helpful. We're going to continue to do future streams like this, more editing and more lessons like this to help you come up with really good ideas as to how to really balance out how to really create interesting shots depending on the kind of situations that you're in. I hope that I demonstrated some good ideas that you can use. Obviously, I would continue to encourage you to please leave comments in the stream. You can go to my website at stuckymedia.com. Obviously, Facebook, Instagram, Stucky Media. And so we appreciate you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.